So I'll just start the presentation now. Okay. So first of all, thanks all the participants who have joined for this particular Qradar demo, and I hope that you will be enjoying this particular presentation and the course content that we are offering. So I'll be talking about IBM Qradar SIM specifically, and specifically to go inside the broader work area, then we'll be understanding about the job role of a security analyst, or we will understand or we'll see this presentation in perspective of security analyst. Okay. And before I'll be presenting the course content that I'll be showing up on the screen right away, there are a few things that I would like to clear. That why QRadar? Basically, we all know that cybersecurity industry is very big today, and various new products are coming every now and then. Some of the popular products that are there out there are gaining a lot of popularity. So why to choose QRadar among all those? I mean, specifically, if I talk about the SOC domain, or from the SOC perspective, generally, uh, the crucial thing that is very important, or the main baseline of entire SOC, is a SIM solution. Then why to choose QRadar as a SIM solution? So QRadar is designed for large organizations mainly. So unlike any other SIM solution out there that you may be aware of, such as Splunk, right? QRadar is a heavy component basically, and it's mainly designed for MNCs and big companies. Obviously, if designed in such a way that it's for big companies, then the efficiency that it's working in is also big and huge. So it contains a lot of capabilities and features where it comes to in terms of detection of threats in a better way. For example, a few key features that I like to just present in a technical way are something. It helps us to capture the network activity via the network activity tab, and in QRadar there is something called as Qflow. Okay, so you might all be aware of the basic packet sampling technologies such as JFlow, NetFlow, SFlow. For example, JFlow is for Juniper Flow and all. So these are all the basic packet sampling technologies, and on the top of these, Qflow is working to provide application detection on the network traffic. So assume that IRC, that is Internet Chat Relay, is the traffic coming in on some random port 8815. Now, regardless on of which port it is operating, Qflow collectors will basically detect the traffic as IRC and give you a small packet capture at the beginning of the communication. So these small but very useful features are adding powers to this QRadar SIM tool. Now, being said this, it will be easy for you to understand if I'll just directly present the course content. Okay, so what course content we will be providing in this particular QRadar course? Here it is in front of your screen. Okay, so the entire course content is basically very huge and very vivid, but we have basically divided into certain amount of pointers so that you can easily understand what I'm talking about. So the very first concept that we'll be talking into the course will be about introduction to SIM and SOC. Now, although this is a very basic concept and many of you people are working into the security background are very well aware of it, but still, just to give you a fresh idea about SIM and SOC, so we will be discussing about that. So for example, you see that today organizations do not have a problem for big data. Okay, they do not have the problem for big data because solutions are already there. But the problem was earlier the data analysis problem, and this is how SIM came into the existence. So let's break down into a simple term. For example, SEM, that is security event management. Here the word event, in simple layman terms, I'm referring to some logs generated by some endpoints, generated by some systems or network devices. So companies were not, you can say, afraid of you can say, storing of the logs or management of logs. But what was the most crucial part for the organizations? To do analysis on them. That is SIM, security information management. And this is how SEM plus SIM is equals to SIEM, that is security information event management, came into place and became one of the most important concepts for the security operations center out there. So we'll be discussing about that. We'll be discussing about various roles in a SOC team, whether it's L1, L2, L3, and what responsibilities they have, and what kind of duties that they are presenting over there, and what kind of threats they need to escalate on a daily basis. So we'll be discussing that. Then we'll understand about enterprise security and its needs. Why do we need enterprise security? How the entire workflow is there in a corporate environment, basically. Then we will directly jump into installation of IBM Qradar. We will be using IBM Qradar Community Edition. Okay, just to show you a glimpse, I'll be showing a small practical as well. So this is where I'm running my Qradar machine as of now. It's Community Edition. Basically, Qradar can be used in multiple ways. The most famous is the distributed deployment that you can see in corporate organizations. But due to the limitations for the free users, we'll be using Community Edition, which is absolutely free, and there is no some kind of charges that you need to pay for Qradar for using the Community Editions. So we'll be understanding how do you set up a DigitalOcean account, how do you create up a droplet. Basically, the entire workflow will be on cloud. So I'll be assisting you throughout the each and every step of creating a cloud machine. Why are we using DigitalOcean service? Why we need to enable RDP, and how to install Qradar, and how to uh, do the network configuration settings and bring our Qradar console up in the browser. Every assistance will be provided by me. Then we will understand about architecture of Qradar. So you see that when I say you that you know about a product, you know how to use a product, okay, and when I say you that you understand the use of product, there is a thin line of difference between these two terms. Why? Because when I say that you know how to use a product, it simply means that you're aware of the various functions that it has, that I can just train you in a certain way that click on this button, click on that button, and click over here and click over there, and this is how you use Qradar. But this is not the agenda for the training that we are providing. Our ultimate goal is to make you understand the capability and the usability of the product at the at a general. So that's the reason we will be also discussing in the course about architecture of Qradar, wherein we'll be understanding various components, and we'll be understanding how Qradar is working in the backend, how event collector is working. And this is very important in terms of, you can say, interview perspective. If some of you are into HR, then you can ask these questions, or if some of you wants to give an interview, then these are the questions that you can expect, such as, that events are coming into log activity tab. So here is my Qradar machine as of now. You see there are certain, you can say, general events that are loaded in my Qradar, which are local events. These are not any from the logs. These are local Qradar events. But the point is, here are some of the events coming into my log activity tab. Now, the question that an HR may ask is how these events are coming into the log activity tab. Which component is responsible for sending them, right? Or you may ask a question to yourself that, okay, I can see different kinds of offenses created in the offense tab, different kinds of alerts created, but who is creating those offenses? Which component is responsible for that? So those questions can only be answered once you understand the product, that we can do by architecture. So event collector architecture, flow collector architecture, high level component architecture, console and processor architecture, even sizing and scoping of Qradar is covered inside the architecture into our course. Then we will be understanding about basic navigation options. What are the basic options that you may see in Qradar to navigate? So what is log activity tab? What is network activity tab? What is admin tab? What are the options available inside the admin tab? And all those such things we'll be looking at. Then we'll be understanding about DSM, that is device support module. Okay, so device support module is mainly responsible for what we call as normalization and parsing of the logs. So the entire normalization and parsing, this entire process is taken care by the DSM inside Qradar. So we'll be understanding what exactly do we mean by DSM. Then how do you install and upgrade DSMs, both methods, manual and automated way, and both will be touching practically. Then we'll be discussing about endpoint logging strategies. So over here, it is kind of a theoretical lesson, but we'll be understanding that what things you need to keep in mind before collecting logs from the endpoints, and what are the best practices, or what are the best strategies out there that we can say tech giants do recommend you for thinking about collecting the logs from the endpoints. Then we'll also have a look at extending Qradar capabilities. Now for this, I'll give you a very layman common example. You all may have an Android phone or an Apple iPhone, and the first time when you purchased it, you might be aware of that there are certain amount of apps that are pre-installed in your smartphone. So if you are an Android user, then you might know that Google Play Store, and then Notes, Chrome, email are some of the basic apps installed in your smartphone. Is it something that you're using the same set of apps throughout your entire life? No. What we do is if we need some more apps, we go to the Play Store, we go to App Store, and we add more apps as per our use, as per our availability, and as per our convenience. So similarly, apart from the existing functionalities of QRadar, there is something called as IBM App Exchange, where we will be looking at how you can add apps from IBM App Exchange. There are various sorts of apps available for various purposes, and depending upon the organizational requirements, we will also have a look at how you can add additional rules inside your QRadar via the App Exchange. And I'll be talking about rules also in a moment or two. Then we will also understand how to create reports, because reporting is very important aspect when it comes to a SOC analyst from a SOC analyst perspective. So how to create automated reports, we'll be looking at that. Then keeping an analyst perspective a bit aside, we will also have a look at some of the concepts from the admin perspective. We just don't want to, you can say, make you understand about the analysis perspective, but we also want to give you taste of the admin strategies and admin practices and all. Obviously installation and all, it all is inside the admin practices, because in a real-time corporate environment, at an analyst level, no one is responsible for installation or deploying, but we are covering that at the very first, right? Coming to core admin tasks in QRadar, we will be looking at data management and index management. We'll be looking at log source custom properties, how to change the retention period for the data which is getting stored in your QRadar, how to change the log source parsing order, and some of the operational tasks and best admin practices we'll be looking at. Then for onboarding, device onboarding, again, it is something that is escalated at L3 level, okay? At a SOC lead level, adding Linux as a log source, which is nothing but basically Linux onboarding. So we will be practically performing the entire onboarding of Linux, okay? How Linux can be onboarded inside QRadar. Now for this, let me quickly show you a small example for this, and let me just even show you that how simple and easy it is to basically onboard Linux inside your QRadar. Okay, so here if you see that I am myself using a Linux machine as of now. Okay, so if I just show you in a moment or two, I hope my screen is also visible properly. So just to make sure that yes, I'm using a Linux machine, I'll be showing you the system information in a moment, and then I'll be showing you that what practical step can be done to basically onboard the Linux machine over here. So you can see this, that I'm using GNOME Linux machine over here. Okay, it's Linux. The core machine that I'm using is Linux. What I'll be doing is now, as of for this practical, is I'll be directly onboarding my main Linux machine inside QRadar as of now. So here I have my QRadar instance running. Okay, and I have just filtered out the unwanted local logs. So you see that these are informational messages that are coming over here, but these are nothing but these are the local messages that are sent by QRadar inside the log activity tab. So if QRadar is something, it's loading something in the backend, then it will send some informational message to it. So these are local logs which I have just disabled. How? I've just added a filter inside QRadar that I don't want any logs from this source IP, and I don't want any logs from this, and neither any logs from this source IP, which these three are the local source IPs, local logs. So now what I'll be doing is I'll be directly onboarding my Linux machine over here. So in Linux, there is a file called as rsyslog. Now basically onboarding works on the principle of syslog. 90% of the devices are onboarded with the help of syslog. Linux is one of them. So I'm using Linux machine which is based on Ubuntu. So in Ubuntu there is a file inside the etc directory, cd. So I'll do a change directory inside etc. Inside this directory there is a file called as rsyslog.conf. So if I just show you that particular file, here it is, rsyslog.conf. This is a particular file that we are interested in, right? And let me just open up that file and do a small change inside it. So what I'll be doing is sudo nano rss-log.conf. And here is the file that is there inside this Linux machine, rss-log.conf. Now I'll just come to the last line, which is over here. And I just have to add one simple line over here. That is auth priv, auth priv, authentication privileges. So auth priv dot star. Here dot star means all the authentication logs at the rate, and I have to mention the destination, that is QRadar. So the QRadar IP, as you can see on the screen in my browser over here, is 192.168.56.101, and save this file, and just have to restart the rsyslog server. So sudo service rsyslog restart, and I just have to go in my QRadar, and again I'll just exclude the unwanted logs and just wait for a few minutes just to check if I'm getting some logs over here or not. If in case I'm not getting, then the problem is that the DSM is not able to parse it manually. Okay, so we can easily go inside the admin tab and add it as a log source. Again, just to save our time, what I'll be doing is I'll be starting another Linux machine, which is inside VirtualBox inside itself. Right, so just to save time, because we don't have, you can say, that much of time that I can go inside the admin tab and tell the DSM to auto parse it, because whenever you add a log source inside QRadar, manually go inside the admin tab, and as a log source you have to deploy the changes every time, and it takes next couple of 10-15 minutes of time. So what I'll be doing is I'll be starting another Linux machine, and I'll onboard that Linux machine also, just to check that if I can do the same process. Now before that, there is one option that I'll just confirm beforehand, that this QRadar machine and the Linux machine, they are able to communicate between each other. So for that, there is one host only adapter assigned to QRadar, and again I'll assign one host only adapter to my Linux machine. Now this will ensure that using those host only adapters, these two virtual machines can communicate with each other. So if you carefully observe that I'm using QRadar inside a virtual environment, the reason is QRadar community editions it's provided in an OVA format, open virtualization format. So by default, we have to use it inside, we can say, a virtual environment, and I'm using VirtualBox in this case, right? So I'll just request you to bear with me till my machine is booting up, the Linux machine. The only reason I'm doing it live, because I just wanted to make sure that I'm doing it in front of you. Okay. Now, one more important thing that we need to understand, that many times there could be a certain amount of delay while displaying the logs in QRadar, especially in community edition, is the fact that QRadar community editions comes with an EPS limit of 50 only. So there is only 50 EPS limit, okay, in QRadar community edition. So that could add a small barrier in displaying the logs. Now, meanwhile, my Linux machine is starting. I'll just give a quick reboot to it. Okay. Meanwhile, this gets up. Let me just quickly discuss the next set of modules. What else we are covering over here. So we will be covering rules and building blocks as well. So what is heart of any SIEM? Heart of any SIEM are the number of rules inside it, or are the rules that are pre-configured inside SIEM. Now, if your rules are properly tuned, fine-tuned, okay, as per your organizational requirements, then there are a lot of higher chances that your SIEM is tuned in a proper way to match with the criteria that your organization wants it, and yield the best out of that SIEM. So this is where QRadar stands apart from many other SIEM out there. The another aspect is that it has a lot of rules which are already pre-configured in a very well manner. Just a little bit of fine tuning is needed to them. So there are a lot of rules inside QRadar where you won't even feel the need to create a custom rule from scratch, because that the similar set of rule you will be finding inside QRadar, and just need to tune and change the parameters according to your preferences. So we'll be discussing about rules, building blocks, what are building blocks inside QRadar, how to create custom rules, what do you mean by local rules and global rules. Then we'll be understanding what are reference sets and how do they assist the rules. And then we will also share you some insights on developing some efficient rules inside QRadar. Then followed by Linux, the next set of practical will be Windows as a log source. So we will be onboarding Windows as a log source inside QRadar. So some basic concepts will be shared with you. Then we will be understanding a general agenda about how do you add Windows as a log source using the WinCollect agent. So WinCollect is an agent using which we can add Windows to QRadar. We can onboard Windows devices. So there are two sets of options that you can choose from: managed and standalone. And here this is a difference that we will be covering both of them. And we will be going into a deep dive practical of standalone deployment. Apart from managed and standalone deployment of Windows as a log source, we will also integrate sysmon with our Windows machine and enable better logging strategies so that QRadar can detect threats in a more detailed manner, such as we'll be enabling process invoke logs, or will be enabling logs for security threats like mimikatz. And at the end, we will be performing red team simulation exercises on Windows. So there will be a Windows machine that is onboarded on QRadar, means the Windows machine is sending logs to QRadar, and we'll be performing some small automated attacks via scripts inside that Windows machine. And we will try to understand that how QRadar is responding to those scripts and attacks. Then we will also understand about dealing with offenses. How do you deal with alerts, offenses? How do you escalate them? And how do you perform a basic investigation on an analyst level? Then we will be understanding about dashboard creation using Pulse. Then one of the most interesting and my favorite concepts is we will be understanding about mapping our QRadar rules according to the MITRE attack framework. So yes, we will obviously have a insight about the attack framework, why it's useful, and we will be understanding the use case of attack framework in SIM, because we will be seeing that how our QRadar rules can be mapped according to the attack framework, and we can see the attack framework coverage based on our QRadar rules. Next topic that we'll be understanding will be integrating threat intel feed with QRadar. Yes, this is also what we'll be helping you to perform, and we'll be showing you practically that how you can actually connect QRadar Threat Intelligence app inside QRadar and directly take feeds from QRadar IBM X-Force Exchange. So let's assume a scenario that apart from the existing set of rules that you have, you want to create a new rule that will basically block access to some certain IPs. So let me just open up my notepad to elaborate this example in a more better way. Okay. So for example, that you have a marketing department in your organization, okay, wherein there are some 25 endpoints or 25 devices which are connected to QRadar. Now, obviously, you know that marketing department, they are not security folks, right? They are not aware of security, and they are not much cyber aware or cyber hygiene at all. And mainly in the marketing department, people download various graphics and files and videos, and also there is a high risk that some of the other employee may just download something which is not relevant and something which may harm the organization at a huge scale. So using QRadar, using references, using CTI, cyber threat feeds or cyber threat intel, what we can do is we can basically ingest threat feeds, or not threat feeds. Let me add a more technical term or a more relevant term: IOCs, indicators of compromise. So we can ingest IOCs. These IOCs could be bad IPs, list of bad IPs, list of bad URLs. We can ingest them inside QRadar using the X-Force Exchange. Then what we can do is we can use these IOCs to create a reference set inside QRadar. and then we can create a rule saying that now what I have done is I have created a network range of my marketing department IPs. Okay, so for example, my marketing department has IP ranging from 192.168.56.100 to 125. So I have created an IP range inside the networking option. I've just created a different network hierarchy inside my QRadar. And what I need to define is that if any of these IPs come into contact with any of these bad URLs, then create an alert, create an offense. So these kind of you can say valuable rules will be understanding how we can create using QRadar. Then we will be understanding about AQL search queries, that how you could use AQL, that is aerial query language. And why aerial query language? That QRadar, because QRadar is using AQL in the backend. What is AQL? It's aerial query language. It's similar to SQL, that is structured query language. The reason is QRadar has something called as an aerial database. Okay. Now this aerial database is basically responsible for storing all the events and flows inside your QRadar. Okay. Now due to that fact, we can basically execute some searches inside that AQL database. Okay. Just like SQL. So to perform those searches, there is something called as AQL, aerial query language, which we'll be understanding about, and I'll be sharing you the cheat sheet for that. And last but not the least, we'll be discussing about some of the troubleshooting and tuning tips inside QRadar, and how do you actually troubleshoot some of the basic errors like forgot the admin password or logs are not coming into the log activity tab, as I'm facing in my case as of now. Right. So these are some of the basic troubleshooting and tuning options that we'll be discussing. And apart from that, at the end of the course, we'll be having a small self-assessment or a small kind of an MCQ kind of a test. See, because the our motto is not to just, you can say, give training in front of the screen where one speaker is speaking and you are listening. No, not at all. But the way we basically aim to teach is to make you people understand the concepts in such a way that we don't move forward unless until one particular concept is not clear to you. So what we will be following is at the end of the course, we will be giving you a small self-assessment MCQ based test. And once you give out that test, then you can basically unlock your certificate that our organization BrainArc will be unlocking for you, right? So my Linux machine has decided that it doesn't want to boot today. I don't know, for some reasons it's not booting up, but let's just try one last time to somehow boot it so that I can, if possible, I can just show the one small practical demonstration. I'll just take a minute or two more, and if the machine is not booting up, then unfortunately we have to stop the demo, right? And I'll be opening um, things for Q&A and your questions that could be there with you. Okay, so you see the machine is not booting properly. That's the reason I already shared you the procedure that how we can onboard Linux as a log source inside QRadar. Okay, so for some odd reasons, my virtual machine is basically not ready to boot. No worries. But anyways, discussing some of the few concepts, let me just check if the machine is booting up. Till then, what I could just do was, so I could just give you a bit about overview about QRadar. As you can see, this is the QRadar interface that is there as it is, and we are using QRadar Community Edition as of now, and we have installed inside a local machine using a browser. Okay, now there are certain things that we will be understanding, such as admin tab, right? So we'll be understanding about how do you auto update QRadar, what are the best update practices, what do you mean by network hierarchies, as I was saying you as of now. So how easy it is to create a network hierarchy inside Qradar, and based on the network hierarchy you can create custom rules about it, that what kind of conditions will be applied to which set of network hierarchy. Correct. We'll be understanding about index management, backup and recovery, reference set management. We'll be understanding about retention, data retention period, extension management for adding apps. We'll be understanding about user management. How do you add users? So in real time environment, there is not one single user using the Qradar environment. There are multiple users using that. So how do you assign permissions and roles to them? Correct. Then we have this DSM editor, log source adder, where we can add some of the log sources. Correct. So major of the concepts inside the admin tab are easily covered. Correct. So this will be our entire agenda for this entire Qradar training. Now, before I just open up to the doubts, there are certain things that I'd like to clear. Okay. Now, it's about the lab setup. Okay. So you may have a question that what about lab setup? So yes, basically lab setup is not provided by us altogether, but yes, the entire assistance for lab setup is given to you practically. So the very first class where we will be talking about Qradar, we will be talking about lab setup itself. The very first module that we will be touching will be setting up your own Qradar home lab. For that, there are certain conditions that you need to keep in your mind. Is you need minimum 16 GB of RAM. And now don't worry on this. If you don't have 16 GB of RAM, still we will be assisting you how to create the lab setup. Now, minimum 300 GB of disk space is required. These are the two minimum and the mandatory criteria for creating the lab setup at home if you want to practice alongside the course. If in case if you don't have these kind of things in your workstation or in your laptop or something, then for that we will be using cloud machine. Okay, using DigitalOcean. Now, DigitalOcean is an American cloud infrastructure provider, just like our Google Cloud and AWS. But the difference is it's way more cheap and the investment is very less that we need in DigitalOcean, right? And the uptime frequency is very high. The support team is very good. So that's the reason we are using DigitalOcean. Now, why do we use DigitalOcean, or what are the things that we need to understand if we want to do lab setup at home? Talking specifically about the course. So this course is about lab setup, and we strongly recommend that if you are enrolling, you practice alongside. If you have this in your own physical machine, this main thing in your physical machine, then you don't need to go inside the cloud altogether. You don't need to put your hands over there. But if you don't have this kind of configuration, then yes, obviously we have a provision for you. Entire lab creation process, starting from how to create a DigitalOcean account, how to add the verification, then how to create a cloud machine, which is known as a droplet inside DigitalOcean. Droplet is nothing but a cloud server, and we'll be using Ubuntu. Inside that Ubuntu, we will be, you can say, adding our Qradar deployment. We will be adding VirtualBox, right? All those things we will be adding. So how do you do that? The entire guide will be given by me to you. No worries on that. The only thing that you need to keep in mind is, if you are a first time user on DigitalOcean, DigitalOcean will give you $100 of free credits for 60 days of time period. Okay. Now, a few months back, it was possible to use these $100 credits to unlock the machine that we want. Now, let me just show you what do I mean by it practically. Let me just go through the DigitalOcean website as of now. So digitalocean.com/pricing. So you see, inside DigitalOcean, there are various kinds of machines that we can choose from, but our interest is of basic droplet, basic machines. But inside basic machine, this is the plan that we need for our Qradar home deployment. 16 GB of RAM, 8 virtual CPU, 320 GB of disk space that is required. Okay. So the cost is $80 per month. And don't worry, don't get panic. We don't need to pay this $80 per month. Okay, you don't need to pay this $80 per month. Why? Because DigitalOcean is giving you $100 free credits for the 60 days. Using this, it's not possible to unlock the $80 machine. That's the drawback. A few months ago, it was possible. But now what used to happen is, using the free credits, threat actors used to unlock high-end machines and mine cryptocurrency. That's the reason DigitalOcean have changed their policies. So according to DigitalOcean, if you want to unlock high-end machine, if you want to unlock high-end droplet plans or higher droplet plans basically, then you need to deposit 25% of total machine cost. So 25% of $80 is $20. Now this is the amount you need to just invest to unlock the machine. And this is not said by me, this is not said by BrainArc, this is not said by anyone from our organization, this is said by DigitalOcean itself. And this $20 deposit that you will be making, it's not something that you will be paying us or it is included in the course fee. No, this is something that you will be adding in your own DigitalOcean account. And the process for that, I'll be sharing during the classes once you enroll up. So you'll be adding this $20 deposit in your own DigitalOcean account. Okay, and this will basically help you to unlock the $80 machine that we need for Qradar. Once you have added the deposit of $20, for the next you can say couple of 45 to 50 days, the costing that will be reduced from your account, it will be from this free credits. That's all. That's the basic simple understanding. Okay, so this is how the entire lab setup is divided. This is the basically the actual breakdown of the lab setup. So if you have these configuration in your physical machine, then you can eliminate all of these. If you don't have this configuration and if you still want to use Qradar and if you want to practice, which is highly recommendable, then entire assistance will be given to you. Apart from the topics that I've just mentioned, what are the other things that we are promising to you? As I said, we are promising you a self-assessment test so that at the end of the course, you are satisfied and you know what are the concepts that you are capable of understanding, right? So based on your self-assessment test, you will be judging yourself that where are you standing and how many of the concepts you are able to clear. This will be provided. Next, what we'll be providing you is, we'll be providing you notes to refer. So we have created good set of notes for each and every module. Even practicals are even included in the notes. So starting from the first practical itself, how do you create an home lab inside DigitalOcean? Entire practical along with the screenshot inside the notes is present. So we'll be sharing you that. Okay. So this was all that I wanted to convey from my end, and machine is not getting booted up. So apologies for that. But this was the entire agenda that I wanted to present from my end to you for this entire Qradar security analyst course that you wish to enroll. And I'll just stop presenting as of now, and any questions or queries, feel free to ask them. Okay, so someone have written that for the enterprise setup, how many servers and cores are required in memory disk space? Now it totally depends upon the organization and the type of EPS plan they want to go with, but there is no specific plan for that. Okay, why is the reason for that is there are a lot of endpoints, okay, inside organization. Depending upon that, depending upon the EPS limit that the organization wants, the pricing may change, but the basic pricing is already present on the website. So if you go for a distributed deployment on IBM official website, they have given the price distribution. So what will be the price for the log aggregator, what will be the price for the console separately, because it's a distributed deployment. So this is how the costing will be divided. But yes,
Bharat, your question is, yeah. Bharat has question, may I know which one is good, Qradar or Splunk? So Bharat, here Qradar and Splunk They follow the best practices in the industry with regards to SIEM. And QRadar is easy to use, easy graphical user interface. Splunk is quite a bit tough. Need to put in a lot of hours of study. So both are industry leaders, QRadar and Splunk, and they follow the best practices in SIEM. Yeah.
Right. Adding to what John has said, again, the point is it is very easy to learn QRadar because things are very much user friendly inside QRadar. So everything is just available in a form of a GUI and in a button of clicks. Even the queries you don't need to make, you can even automate the queries inside QRadar. But inside Splunk, you need to learn about the queries, you need to learn about the search parameters. So it's kind of complex to learn Splunk. Could you please advise what
It's
is the
always better to
certification
start off with
cost?
QRadar. If you're trying to jump into SIEM, QRadar is the best pick because you will understand the technology, the backend technology, how is the SIEM working, what are the components, what is the architecture. So the best way to jump into SIEM space is QRadar. You jump into QRadar, you will easily grasp all the technology, all the concepts, and then you can go to the next level is Splunk. So QRadar is the first option, then you can go in for Splunk.
So someone has just asked that what do you need before learning QRadar coding wise? So there is no coding experience, any kind of coding prior experience required for learning QRadar. Coding is a separate different domain altogether, and QRadar is entirely focusing on corporate security, right? Security solution, the data analysis solution. So there is no kind of prior experience required. Yeah, the only thing that is advisable, I mean, not only for QRadar, but for the entire security domain, that you should have basic understanding about security concepts. That's all. Otherwise, no, there is no such prior requirement. It's very easy to learn QRadar. Do we need to learn Linux commands? Not at all. So Prashant, I'll just add one point to your question that we don't need to learn Linux commands in QRadar, specifically as on the analyst level, right? But as you move on and as you move on to the higher end for, in terms of administrative tasks and all, in terms of deployment tasks, then are certain commands that you need to understand about, and even if that is required, we'll be sharing you the entire commands and all. So whatever commands that we will be using, all those things will be given to you.
Prashant, Linux is like basic level installation of the QRadar app. Very basic level of Linux commands you need to know. Probably 5 or 6 commands. Okay. Second question from Mahesh. If we do this course, is there any chance of it? Yes, obviously, Mahesh. Mahesh, you are learning the number one product in SIEM, that is QRadar. It's a 12-year leader in Gartner. So once you do QRadar, you go out in the market, you say, I know QRadar. Companies are going to go out there and interview you without a certification. And if you have a certification, I mean, you will get mind-blowing offers. So because QRadar is incorporated the best practices in SIEM. It's a Gartner leader for 12 years, back to back.
Assume I have an endpoint, so how can I send logs to QRadar? Pawan, depends on what endpoint you have. Endpoint doesn't mean just an endpoint. Endpoint means Linux, Windows, Mac OS, AWS, cloud, everything. So depends on what kind of endpoint you are onboarding. In the course, I'll be practically covering Linux and Windows because these are the most common endpoints found in any enterprise organization. You have shown us a demo to integrate a single Linux machine to QRadar. Yes, for that, I'll be sharing you the references inside the course for onboarding multiple devices. For Windows, it is very easy. For Linux, it may be a bit challenging, but for Windows, it's very easy, and I'll be guiding you through that. But the only point that you need to make sure is inside a home environment, inside a training environment, it is not even recommended, or it is not even that easy to onboard multiple log sources. Why? Because as I said, 16 GB of RAM minimum is required, out of which 8 to 10 GB of RAM we are assigning to QRadar. It's already running heavy on our machines, right? So that's why there is some kind of one single onboarding machine or onboarding endpoint inside the training environment. Otherwise, apart from that, the guidance or the workflow of that, I'll be sharing you during the course. Don't worry at all, Hitesh. Is there any agentless log collection inside QRadar? Yes, there is agentless log collection. The thing that I just showed practically as of now, the Linux onboarding, it is completely agentless. It's completely agentless. So there is no agent involved at all in between when you onboard Unix devices inside QRadar. The Linux machine will directly forward the logs using syslog to the QRadar, to the destination. And it's completely agentless process. Yeah, when it comes to agent, then you are referring to the win collect agent.
Okay, Mahesh, I'll answer this question to you. Every company is asking. See, this is happening in India, right? The people who devise the job description, they randomly say 3 to 4 years of SOC analyst. So you have to all ignore that. You have to see. You have to build up your technical competencies. Know your product well. QRadar. Do a deep reading every day, like 3 to 4 hours of reading of the QRadar content. Understand the concepts, and and with the training what we'll be providing, you will be cracking all the interviews, right? Left, right, and center, you'll be cracking all the interviews. So just ignore that 3 to 4 years experience criteria. It doesn't make any sense.
Okay, and adding to John's what just John sir have just said, Mahesh, to your question is the fact that if you just observe from the interview perspective, right, it's not something that the HR will tell you to perform some practical and then he will just pick you. The point is you will be asked certain questions altogether to understand how much technically sound you are, right? So for that, even you understand the product in a certain way, you understand how it's functioning, you understand the architecture, and definitely you are one of those who can crack up core interviews for QRadar.
And Mahesh, the focus of this course is not only to train you with IBM QRadar with the technology, also to make you job ready in terms of the interview questions and everything. Because our last sessions will be mock test. We'll have 50-60 questions of mock test. So when you answer those questions, your concepts will be so clear that we are actually preparing you for the interview, the job interviews. That test will prepare you for the job interviews. You'll be very confident enough in terms of the concepts.
Yes, Dinesh, your question is absolutely correct, and yes, this is the very good decision that you are making. Basically, if you are into networking environment and if you want to jump into security domain, if you are switching your career, then number one, the very first entry thing that you need to do in security is SOC. In SOC also, the very first baselines that you need to learn is SIM. In SIM also, it is highly recommended to go with a SIM which is highly industry valued, and QRadar is one of them. So yes, that will totally help you to make your career switch into security. So Pawan is asking that is this
Yes,
course
Pawan,
covering
definitely.
L2 and L3 concepts? Yes. So adding some technical answer to that question, Pawan, is the fact that if you understand or if you are aware of the L2 and L3 concepts, then onboarding of devices or installation, the deployment, rule creation of custom rules, all these things are not escalated or not even looked at L1. All these things include L2 and L3. So installation is L3, onboarding is L3, integrating of apps is L3, mapping of attack framework with the rules is L3, integrating threat intel feed is L3, then basic you can say offense escalating is L2, right? Creating custom rules is L2, right? Reference set again is somewhat referred to L2, network hierarchy is L2, right? So major of the L2 and L3 concepts are even covered inside the course syllabus mainly. Okay, any more questions? Feel free to ask questions if you have in case. Do we need to, do we require to understand the attack vectors to understand the alerts? Uh, the answer to this question will be a bit yes. I'm not saying that you need to know about each and every attack vector, because attacks are evolving each and every day, right? So even the high-end security folks who are quite well experienced, they are also not aware what will happen next or what attack may come. But yes, the basic understanding that how the attack, for example, if I say you that if there is an authentication error, or if there is multiple authentication failure, so you could relate to as a brute force attack. Basic terminologies are always required in security domain.
Yeah,
So
attack
Dinesh,
vectors.
to
See,
answer your question,
in
that are we
terms
going
of
to?
rules, defining the
Mhm.
rules. Urvesh, with regards to defining the rules on the QRadar scene, the attack vector skills will hold a lot of importance.